Okay folks, well, welcome to the old classic car channel. Now apparently the weather is set fair for the next few days, so I'm going to try and spend as much time this week as I can doing a bit of spannering on some of the cars around the place here at OCC HQ. Just the other day I spent some time showing Harley how to change the spark plugs on his VW Fox. Fortunately it's only a 3-cylinder car, so that didn't take too long, but yeah, you just had to sort of tread carefully a little bit because it's got an aluminium cylinder head and it's quite easy to strip the threads out of the head if you're a bit too ambitious, a bit too keen with the spark plug spanner. So we spent some time doing that. He has done a little video all about that. On Saturday, a couple of days ago, I changed the oil in the Renault, the little 4CV there, and the big job this week really is to do some work on the brakes on the MX5, which is just behind the camera over there. The front calipers have been sticking a fair bit recently, and every time you leave it for a day or so, the near side front brake is always a bit sticky. You can sort of free it up a little bit and give it a tap, and then it sort of frees up, but it's not great. So I've got some new calipers ready to go on that, and I just need to have a bit of a check around and have a bit of a look around underneath, because I've not had it up in the air for a little while. It's always quite advantageous just to have a bit of a poke around, see if it needs a bit of oil spreading around underneath just to protect the floors, that kind of thing. So the plan is to move this out of the garage, put it outside just for a few days, sheet it up, double sheeted or even triple sheeted, so it won't get damp. And like I say, the weather is looking pretty good for the rest of the week. Put the MX5 in here, and then I can jack it up on the slabs, the solid floor in here, because jacking up cars and putting them on stands on gravel and sort of compacted earth and whatnot, it's never great fun putting boards down and trying to sort of use the jack, and it's just horrible. So it's much better to do it in the garage, any work like that. So that's the plan this morning, is to swap them round, get the MX5 in here, put this outside, sheet it up, and then it'll be alright, and then jack this up, wheels off, and then have a look, see what's involved in changing the front calipers. I've got a feeling I've had them off before, because they've always been a bit prone to sticking, and as far as I know they're probably the original calipers, so maybe 30 years old now, so they're probably well overdue a change. I bought a complete pair, new calipers both sides for the front. That should see the sticking brake problem sorted. The rears can be a little bit prone to sticking a little bit as well, but I'll have a closer look at those, and if need be I'll get some new ones of those in as well. But for now I think let's just get them swapped round and see where we're at. But before I do that, I'm just going to show you how straightforward it is to get at the oil drain plug on the little Renault here. It's probably the easiest car oil change I have ever done. So let's just have a quick peek, just spend a couple of seconds under there, just have a look, and I'll tell you why it is such an easy job. Yes, the oil change on this little car couldn't have been any easier. Of course it's rear engined, as I'm sure you're all aware. Let's just pop this light on. And I did run it up a block onto a couple of blocks of wood, but I didn't really need to, because if you just clamber down here, there is the sump drain. Nice and easy to get to, so just put a tray under there and Bob's your uncle. Whiz that off, out it comes. There's not too much, it's about 3 litres or so, 3 litres of oil give or take, so it's not a great deal, but how easy is that to get to? No oil filter to worry about either. I do wonder if maybe there is an oil filter conversion available out there, but yeah, that was a nice easy quick job for a change. It's actually surprisingly clean under here. Someone has really gone to town on this one. Talking of the Renault, I had an almost exciting moment, quite a catastrophic moment in fact, while we were out driving this just the other day. We were going down a quiet country lane, and if you can imagine, the road sort of goes straight. There's like a left turn up here which we were thinking of doing, tree lined, bushes, hedges. We were only doing about 30ish, something like that, and there's a road that comes in from the side, sort of like this. There's a junction, it's like a staggered junction, and we were driving straight up here, ready to go up there. This car came in at speed from this side and had no intention of stopping at the stop line. There were giveaway signs, etc., but they were having none of that. We were driving along in a straight line, ready to turn off up there. This car came in, and the first I saw of it was when I looked out the corner of my eye driving along here, and all I could see was the passenger side window of their car driving along like this, and then they sort of peeled off and stopped on the wrong side of the road further down there, and I sort of went off down here, and I can only assume they came through at speed with no intention of stopping at all, saw us, panicked, turned, fortunately, and it must have been this close, because all I saw was a big view of their side passenger front door here, and then we sort of ran along side by side, and then they went off up there. Needless to say, I was not terribly impressed. Yeah, a bit of a close call. Right, let's get this gone, get it moved. Usually the youthful assistant would do all this for me, fire it up and get it moved, but alas, he is away studying for his A-levels today. In fact, I'll probably go and pick him up a bit later in this, give it a little run. Right, let's just clamber aboard. Rear hinge doors on these. Yeah, so sneak in here. Right, by gum. Right, into neutral. There's the gear lever down there. Of course, the engine is way back over here. Choke down there. Give it a bit of that. Let's see how we go. Maybe a bit more choke. Never like to overdo it. There we go. Never doubted it. Does sound like the battery could do with a bit of a booster. I do wonder if the battery, it's a 6-volt system, but I do wonder if it's just starting to flag a little bit. Forgot to move that chair over there, so that might get in the way. Right, let's get this out of the way. I did also adjust the front passenger door. You used to have to give it a fair old push to get it to shut properly, but I found if I adjusted this catch, it's a lot better. It's not 100%, but it's kind of pretty good now. And in case you're wondering, I know some of you do ask about this one, I haven't forgotten about the A40. It's just other things keep popping up, keep taking my time up. I can't spend all day every day out here, unfortunately. There's always something else to do around the place. But yes, don't worry, this is still very much on my radar. Right, I mean, this has only been sat a few days, and even now it's stuck. Yeah, definitely ripe for replacement. So let's get this going. I've got the key, I think. Not sure which way around to put it in the garage. Don't worry about that at the moment. Right, so the Renault's just running over there. Get this off. Right, into neutral. To be honest, we haven't had to spend a great deal on this. We've had it a few years now. Do the immobiliser. Right. I can't complain at that. Right. So it's the front passenger is the priority. Now whether I jack it up and do them both at the same time, we shall see. Yeah, it's just grabbing a little bit. Alright, there we go. I've put the roof down. It makes it a lot easier to clamber in and out when you're a little bit tight for space. Just about enough space, I think, to get around the front. So like I say, I've got a new caliper to go on here because you really want to be replacing them in pairs anyway. And this is the main one, this one here. So there should be, yeah, There's sufficient space to get in there. I can move a bit of this junk out of the way. Very useful lights. But yeah, that should make it a lot more agreeable to jack up on, to put the axle stand underneath on a proper floor, as opposed to out there, which is always, it just makes what should be a fairly straightforward job really, really unpleasant. The brakes aren't sticking too badly, and I can still push it by hand, so it could be a lot worse, but you can just hear it grabbing a little bit. I had thought that maybe a bit of regular use would have seen it free up sufficiently, which has worked okay in the past, but I think it's a bit beyond that now, so I'll have to bite the bullet, take off the front wheel and do a bit on the brakes. But you can hear it actually, and you certainly notice the wheel getting quite warm. Yeah, that's not good. I wouldn't have got very far if I hadn't found the locking wheel nut key. That has scuppered many a job in the history of car spannering, I suspect. There we go. Right. Put a bit of cloth in there. Just go and find a stand now. That's one side done. Now for over here. Okay, there we go. Up on stands, both sides at the front. And I've just left the jack under there, just for a bit of added support, just in case. But yeah, right. Where's this wheel off? You can probably hear it now. Look at that. Yeah, that's not exactly optimal. Here we go, slowly but surely. Right. There we go. Discs look okay, still a fair bit of life left in those. Obviously, I'll check the pads when this comes off. I think I'll spread a bit of oil around under here as well, because it is a bit dry. There's surface rust around, and we don't want it to get any worse than that, really. Again, just in case the stands fail, if you've got the wheel under there, it saves trapped fingers. Right. Here are the new calipers. There's one of them in its nice bag. So always something very therapeutic about opening a bag of shiny new parts. At least I've heard of the makers. So that gives you a little bit of confidence, although I don't suppose a named brand really means a great deal nowadays, not like it used to. But yeah, so basically this is your brake caliper. If you know all about brakes, then you can probably skip the next few seconds, but this is how the brakes work. You've got the brake disc here. This is attached firmly to the hub, the wheel, and it spins round just as the wheel does. Then when you want to stop, you put your foot on the brake. The hydraulic fluid pumps down here, down this flexi pipe, and there's a fixed metal pipes further back, but you get a flexi at this end to accommodate the front hub steering. So this needs to be flexible, and as you press the pedal, fluid gets forced down here, and in this case you've just got one single big piston in there. That's a rubber seal, a black bit, and that piston closes. So if you can imagine that that, and that in this gap is the brake disc, that big round bit there. When you press the pedal, it forces this piston, and you've got a brake pad here and here, and as that piston comes out, it closes up the gap and grabs onto the disc like so, and that's what slows you down. But what happens is over time you get corrosion in the piston, where the piston, the sides of the piston in there, that big circular bit, where that sits inside here, the main casting, the main body of the brake caliper, you get corrosion on that, and it means that when you take your foot off the pedal and the piston rather, doesn't always fully retract back into the caliper, and that's when you get grabbing, which is very undesirable, because what happens is you've got a grabbing brake, it all gets very hot, and even just going down the road you could touch the wheel after you stop and it felt quite hot. But what can happen is, especially on cars, you know, with even with drum brake cars, but what can happen is it overheats the hub and you start losing grease out of the wheel bearing, and that can lead to the wheel bearing running short of grease, which is never a good thing. So you tend to cook things a little bit where you shouldn't have heat. So this job is very, very essential indeed. So this is the caliper mounting bracket, this bit here. So I think that bit stays on. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but yeah, that bit stays on, but I might take it off just to clean it, but we'll see. But the caliper, which is this bit, is held on with a bolt there, another one down there, and you have to break this off as well. This is the fitting, which is looking like it needs a good clean up, but hopefully that'll come undone. Might just have to go at that carefully. We may have to replace that as well. Yeah, it's not rocket science. And then once I've replaced both of the front calipers, this and the one over the other side, then we need to bleed up, because when you crack or break the disc at the brake pipe, you get fluid loss and also therefore air in the system, and that'll give you a mushy soft pedal. So you need to bleed that up again a little bit later, but we're nowhere near that stage just yet. Okay, well, I've had this one out for a little run. It's a little bit later in the day, the sun has come out, fresh hot coral spun deployed, and I returned back to the job in hand. Yes, the little MX5, we can just about squeeze down here. So, what's next? I'll just pop that on there. Right, so I have been applying the oldie trusty water displacement 40 onto the key mounting bolts here, and this one here on the flexi. So I've just been leaving that to soak for the last couple of hours or so, because we want to make everything in our favour before starting to see if we can loosen these off, and because you only really want to have one go at it, because if these start rounding you're going to have real problems. You can use heat, but of course with this rubber flexi here you've got to be very, very careful of using heat, and I don't think you want to have heat anywhere near brake fluid either, ideally. But you can use a hot air gun, assuming I've still got it, mind you, just to warm up the area if need be. But I think what I'll do is, to begin with, I'll just make sure I've got a really, really good close fitting socket to fit this and the other mounting bolt down below. And I'll also give them a sharp tap with a hammer, so if there is any corrosion on these threads, that can often free them up. Sometimes you get a bit of mileage by actually tightening them a little bit and then going for the full wind out of the bolt. So there's different things you can do just to sort of try and stack the odds in your favour, but the more you can do beforehand and prepare, the likely outcome is going to be. So yeah, so the first thing is I'm going to find a proper socket, a really good, nice, close-fitting socket on there, give it a tap, and then see how we get on. But only once I've finished this. Right, okay, there we go. That's the one that I really wanted to get off the line in on the flexi there and get the little bits out of here. That's the one that I thought might be the problem. But I found a really nice fitting socket just there, and that one just worked a treat. So I gave it a tap with a trusty Birmingham screwdriver over here, and then it just came bing, and that was okay. Now I haven't clamped this. Sometimes you read, ooh, clamp the flexey to stop some of the fluid coming out, which is fine, but A, the fluid is probably fairly old anyway, so it wouldn't harm to replace it. It's just dripping merrily into the tub there. But also, I always think if you clamp these, you could potentially damage the internals of the flexi hose itself. So I'm never very happy with the idea of putting a proper clamp or mole grips, or you see all sorts of things being done, but to be honest, I'd rather just bleed through fresh fluid anyway, and then you're done, and there's no risk of this collapsing, because what can happen is sometimes the internals inside the flexi can actually close up, and that can lead to brakes not releasing properly. So yeah, it doesn't strike me as being a very good idea. So that can drip into there, and I'll just attend to the two further bolts, that one and one down here, that one there. I'll just deal with those, but they're a lot meatier than this one was, so they shouldn't come off without a great fight. I just want to go and I'm going to get my phone, just photograph, or I could even use the camera, given that I'm actually holding the camera. I just want to sort of photograph how these springy clip things sit that hold the pad, which you can just see in there maybe. So the pad is in there. Obviously that's what grips the disc. I just want to make sure that I photograph these so that I make sure it all goes back together as it came apart. And at the other end of the braking system here is the master cylinder, the brake master cylinder attached to the brake servo. I've just put this under here because something in the back of my mind tells me if you trap a bag under there, it does minimise some fluid loss. But I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've read about any of this, and you may remember in 2024 I had all this apart because the cam belt snapped on me after just 8,000 miles, which was a bit of a surprise, to be honest. About 3 years and 8,000 miles. I thought it would have lasted a bit longer than that. Last time I had a garage fit it for me. This time I thought I'm going to do it myself. So yeah, that's all hidden away in there. But yes, this week's task is a bit of brake work. Okay, well, both caliper mounting bolts came out without a fight. Different size. Let's have a look. So this one is 17 mil. This one 14 mil. So I think this should come off now. Obviously I can't really do this single-handedly, so I'll put the camera down and report back once I've carefully got this off. Like I say, I'll probably reuse the pads because I think there's still plenty of meat on those. The discs, there's virtually no wear lip on there, so these should have many more miles left in them. In hindsight I should have probably bought some new flexes, but not to worry. The priority is this, so I'll just carefully get this off and then have a look, see what's involved in putting a nice shiny new brake caliper in its place. And there we go, just gently prised it off, and there is the old brake caliper. So yeah, for what they cost, it's not worth trying to fix this up. So the pads are there, so there we go, you can see those. You've got these little springy clip things holding them in. I'm assuming these are the anti-rattle little shim type things. So what I'll probably do is take these off and just clean where they lodge just inside the caliper mounting bracket here, because the top of the pad goes in there and it can get a bit dirty in there sometimes, so same down here. So I'll probably whiz those off and do the same back here just to make sure it's all nice and clean and proper. Yeah, it's not the worst job in the world, but yeah, it's just a bit grubby. And brake fluid is horrible stuff, of course. It's horrible on your fingers, it's yucky and whatever. More important than your fingers is paintwork. It's very bad for paintwork. So never let them get in touch with each other because it could be disastrous for your paint finish. Okie dokie, right. These I've been out, I've taken the pads out, and I've cleaned where the little ears, let me get the light, where the little ears on the end of the pad rest in here. I've cleaned all out in there. Same with the inner pad as well, this over here, so that they now slide happily in the sort of slotted thingies there. One of the springs is quite prone to pinging out. We've got this little springy affair here. I'm not sure if we can see any of this. So that goes in there. So make sure that's all in position, and then I think it's time to whiz on the fresh caliper. All good fun. Okay, there is the caliper back on, copper greased on the bolts, etc., to give you a fighting chance of being able to remove them again in future. And the pads are just a nice fit in there, no restrictions, cleaned out the little grooves that they sit in there. So all we need to do now is refit the flexi using this bolt here, and it seals with these little copper washers here. These are the original ones that came off, so I'm going to not reuse those because you shouldn't reuse them. I'm going to have a route through here. I'm pretty confident there'll be something in here that will do the job. These are all brand new ones, and they compress as you tighten it up, and that's what forms the seal. Right, onwards. Okay, there we go. So that side's all bolted back up, ready for bleeding. Now, time to rinse and repeat over this side. Obviously, unless there's something dramatically different, I won't bother videoing this. It all looks pretty similar. So the usual clean-up, strip down, get this off, free everything up, and then fit the new caliper. Then we should be ready to bleed them up. Okay, and that's that side on as well now, by the magic of television, or in this case YouTube. That's all fitted on. Bleed nipple is nice and free, so that's ready for bleeding up. So when my youthful assistant is available, I'll get him to give me a hand doing that. I can hear a wasp somewhere. Where is it? Where's it gone? I can hear it somewhere. They're all starting to come out now the weather's warming up a bit. I keep hearing the odd one. Where is it? I can hear it, but I can't see it. Oh, maybe later. Anyway, let's not get just put my teeth in. Let's not get distracted. So I'm going to tidy up all the bits and bobs that I no longer require. Just leaving out the gear for bleeding the brakes, the first job of which is to top this back up again. I can take the bag out from under there now. I'm never quite sure if that actually makes any difference, but anyway, right. It won't harm to have some fresh fluid in the works anyway, so I've never changed it. So I'll put that over here, and over here we have, just flick the light on. Let's just flick that on. The oldie lamp. So these are the two calipers, definitely past their sell-by date. They still worked, but they just weren't very good. There's the other one there. So yeah, nice job done. Just need to finish it off now. Well, just to skip ahead a little bit, I was going to do this tomorrow actually, but the youthful assistant was around, as was Mrs. OCC, so between us we have actually bled up the brakes. That involves having something like this, a container with a pipe, put the other end over the pipe, put the other end of the pipe over the bleed nipple, open the bleed nipple, and then pump through until you no longer get, there's a bleed nipple there, until you no longer get any air bubbles in the clear pipe going into the bottle. Always checking to make sure The level in the master cylinder never drops too low, so you're always topping that up again just to make sure. So I've done both sides twice, and the pedal feels pretty good now, so I think we can draw a line under that part of the job. Last thing I'll do this evening is I'll just pop the wheels back on, but I won't put it down on the floor yet because I also want to have a look at the handbrake at some point. So that's another little job for this week of mechanical spannering here at OCC HQ. Well, morning folks, it is the following day and time to carry on with the oldie MX5 parked up over there in the garage. Front brakes are all bled up, front end is still up in the air, so I think the plan for today, get the front end back on the floor, tighten up the wheel nuts, and then have a look at the back end, because I think even though they're not as bad, occasionally you do get the rear brakes sticking a little bit, and I also need to adjust up the handbrake as well, the emergency brake as it's called in some markets, but here it's called the handbrake, so that needs adjusting up. And just a quick look and just a bit of a fettle, bit of a clean up with the rear calipers and just see if anything can be improved there. If the calipers are in the same state as the front ones, then I'll just have to bite the bullet and buy some more, but I've got a feeling they probably just want a bit of tickling up really. So that's the plan for this morning anyway. I would like to get some sort of wax oily type product under there. It's a bit dry in places underneath the car, a bit of surface rust here and there, no real rust through as such, but obviously I don't want any surface rust to get any worse than it is already. So I'll have a bit of a poke around while I'm under there, because I've not been under there for a few months. But yeah, let's crack on with that. Another beautiful day, so I'm going to definitely try and make the most of it. Right, it's time to get this one off. It is, you probably can't hear that, but it is sticking just a little bit. It's just yeah, so we definitely need to just give this one a bit of a looking at, I think. So I've got a stand under there as well as the jack, just in case, belt and braces and all that. So we'll just whiz the wheel off, assuming I can remember which is the correct end of the spanner. It's not that one. That's the one. I knew I'd get there in the end. I can't believe this week of weather we're having, so it's just perfect weather for getting on with a few jobs around in here. And of course, with decent weather, you want to be driving an open top car if you've got one. So that's the plan with this. If you've been following the channel for a while, you'll already know this, but this is the third Mk1 MX5 that we've had over the years. Mrs. OCC had a couple. First she had a UK spec car, and then that went a bit rusty. And this was quite a long time ago. So we ended up buying a UNOS import. And one of the advantages with an import is, I believe, in Japan they don't put salt on the roads in the winter, which is a bit of a killer, to be honest, especially for cars like MX5s, which are already pretty prone to rust at the best of times. And that was a really nice car, so she ran that for quite a while until a two-seater was no longer perhaps the most appropriate car to have in the fleet, so that went. But in more recent times we found this one, which I've known about for quite a long time. It used to belong to a neighbour of ours across the road. They had to give up driving it, and it had been parked up off the road for a couple of years when I went to go and look at it, but I decided to buy it, recommissioned it, and I've been running it ever since. So, yeah, good old things these are. Just a bit. There we go. That's it. Shove that under there, and I'll just have a bit of a fiddle around on here. The caliper looks pretty similar to the type on the front, but of course it incorporates the handbrake mechanism as well, so that's a bit of a difference. And while this is off, I will adjust up the handbrake. To do that, basically you back off the adjustment. There's an adjustment on the lever itself, so you back that right off, and then you adjust up each wheel in turn, and then to get the right number of clicks you go back to the inside the car and readjust the lever itself, and that's how, in a nutshell, you adjust the handbrake on one of these cars. But for now, I'm just going to have a bit of a fiddle in here, and then I'll report back once I have done that. All good fun. Okay, well, I mean, this isn't a how-to video, but this is really just a log of what we've been getting up to. So the caliper has now been removed, which is this bit here. There's the piston there, and that is what pushes the pads onto the brake disc, so that's just out of the way over there. I need to make sure everything's free on that. I've backed off the adjustment. To get the caliper off, just if you're curious, you back off the adjustment on the handbrake, so I want to adjust that anyway, so back that off. There's a little adjuster just down there. So you whiz that off. There is an adjuster on the back of the caliper. On the back of the caliper itself there's a little 14mm plug, and then you get in there with an Allen key. I think it's a 4mm Allen key, and you can back off the adjuster, undo a bolt at the bottom, and then the whole lot sort of pivots up, and then you can lift it off. It sits on this pin here, the top mounting. It just slides onto that. So it's all fairly straightforward. So I've got the pads off, still plenty of life left in them, so I'm just cleaning up where the pads sit on here to make sure they're free to move in here, in this fixed sort of bracket here. Okay, so where am I up to with the rear brakes now on the MX5? Well, I've had a bit of a poke around, spent a bit of time, especially on the near side rear, because that was sticking. And the more I look at the state of the calipers, they look so similar to the front, so they're probably the same age as those on the front. Whether they are the original 30-year-old calipers or not, I'm not quite sure, but either way they have been on there quite a long time really. So I've bitten the bullet and I've ordered a pair of new calipers for the back as well, and hopefully with those installed and adjusted up I can kind of forget about the brakes for just a little while, because every year pretty much they just sort of stick a little bit, and it almost gets to the point where even if you wash the car and leave it overnight, the next morning they can be sticking a little bit as well. So you kind of think, ugh. And then when you actually take the wheels off and actually have a look at them, and they're all a bit coked up and claggy and rusty and horrible, you just sort of think, I can't be spending time trying to free up old calipers. So, you know, unless you really need to reuse the old calipers, I would heartily recommend, if they're available, just fit new, look after them, grease all the fittings and the mounting bolts and so on, so it gives you a chance to get them off again in future. And really, it's just the sensible thing to do in this case. So I've ordered those, so hopefully they'll be here within the next day or two, that kind of thing. In the meantime, I mean, I've taken off the wheel on the offside rear as well, just so that I'm ready to go once the new calipers are here. But yeah, I had hoped to kind of finish this job today, but that's not going to happen. But that's just the way it is with old cars. And I mean, it's 30 years old now this year. Maybe I should buy it a cake. But yeah, it's certainly getting on a bit, so I think we can forgive it a few crusty little features here and there in the brake department, in the caliper department. So at least once this is finished, once the job's over with, it'll have new calipers all around. The pads themselves, I would have replaced those, but there's loads of meat left on them still, so why bother? I've just cleaned them up a little bit carefully and they will be reused. So yeah, just a bit of a pause in proceedings while we wait for the new calipers to come. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. The Renault's sheeted up now. That won't come to much harm if it's just outside for a few days. I need to get some brake fluid, actually, that reminds me. I must get some more brake fluid. I need to get some of that so that when we get around to bleeding we don't run out, because there's nothing more frustrating than starting to bleed brakes and then realising we've run out of fluid. And the other big benefit, of course, of doing the rear calipers as well as the fronts is that by the time I've bled through both rear calipers, most of the brake fluid in the entire system will be new. So that's a bit of a benefit as well. It's a bit of a Brucey bonus. So that's a good thing. So by the time we're done, by the time it's finished, yes, it's taken a bit more time than I expected, but it should be pretty much right by then. And then I find that the final thing to do once I've done the rear calipers is adjust up the handbrake or the emergency brake in the cockpit itself, and then it should be good to go. I think the MOT is coming up fairly soon, so that'll probably expire while the car is up in the air and in pieces, but what's a week or so here and there. I don't need it. I don't, you know, I mean, it's obviously, it'd be nice to have it out and about today, but the priority really is just to get it in the right condition, ready for the rest of the year, because we do use this one quite regularly during the nicer months. We get to quite a few events with it, because being 95 it does qualify for some of the sort of classic and modern classic shows that we get to. So yeah, it'd be nice to have this one on the button. The Renault is behaving at the moment. Fingers crossed. The pickup is, the Pilot is, so that's why I'm cracking on with this one while there's a bit of a lull in proceedings with the older cars. So just try and get this one sorted out and then have that one on the button as well. So fingers crossed the new calipers will be here very, very soon, and I'll report back when they are. The joys. Bit of tractor activity over there in the field. Right, I'll be back soon. Well, if it's not one thing, it's another. No sooner do I order the replacement calipers for the oldie MX5, I'm advised that the EPC light has come on the trusty Fox, and a bit of research tells me it's quite common that that is actually triggered, the EPC light, where's the key, by the stoplight switch. So I've just been having a bit of a wiggle around on the stoplight switch, and it seems that has gone a bit dicky. Now I'm not quite sure if we're going to be able to see this, but basically it sits just up there. I'm not sure if that'll come out, but trust me, it's just up there somewhere. At least it's nice and easy to get off. I just checked the video on YouTube, and it's literally a bayonet twist fitting to pull the switch out. Just pull the connector off, put the new switch on, in through 90 degrees, and that's it. So hopefully that'll be here in the next couple of days or so. But yeah, plenty to do, plenty to do. At least the clocks have changed now, so we've got lighter evenings, and that's really helping things progress here in the garage. That's OCC HQ. Long dark evenings and never much fun, but yeah, hopefully this will be back on the road and ready to go before too long. Yes, there are stands under there as well as the jack. Okay folks, well it is an evening, a weekday evening, and just a little project. So this is the project of the evening. This is an original wartime model of, let me just get that turned round. This is, I hope you can see that, a Martin Baltimore, and this I believe is an original manufacturer's model. It is very, very heavy, made of a solid piece of metal, and this was found at a car boot sale. We just went to a random car boot sale, and on a table full of just household knickknacks was this, and it is in wonderfully original condition. The original transfers there for the Royal Air Force, and I just, well, as soon as I saw that I thought, I can't resist that. So home it came with me. The only thing it's missing, I don't think it's ever had propellers, but it's missing a stand, and it's been sat on a cup, a bit like that, on a cup in a cupboard for the last few years. But the other evening I noticed I found this spare stand for a model aircraft. Now this is, I think, for one of the Corgi range of aircraft that I think they probably still produce, but it's actually quite a nice stand, and it's kind of the right size for this model aeroplane, something like that. The only thing I've got to do is, we've got two holes in there, and that is the end of the stand, and that just needs to pop in there but it's not gonna quite go. It's just a little bit too big. So the plan is just to get some sandpaper and just gently wear that away a little bit, so it's a nice pop fit into there. At least that's the theory. Whether it'll work or not is anyone's guess, but I'm guessing if I actually do end up publishing this clip, then it did go to plan. But it's such a lovely model aeroplane. I mean, this would have been on the desk possibly of a squadron leader who operated the Martin Baltimore. This was like a light bomber of the Second World War. So yeah, the CO or squadron leader, like I say, that would have been on their table in the Second World War. So that's a lovely thing, and like I say, it's pretty heavy. But the plan now, let's go and find some sandpaper, give this a bit of a clean up, and just see if I can whittle this down just enough. I mean, this is only plastic. I mean, ideally it would be a metal stand, but beggars can't be choosers. And we'll just see if I can just whittle that down a little bit and make it a nice pop fit in to the bottom of there. Right, sandpaper deployed, so I'll just put a little bit of that on here. We'll just give it a bit of a first go and just see if we can reduce the diameter of this little pin here. It may be that I have to resort to a small file, but you never know. Right, let's get that there. I think that's going to go. It's almost in. Oh, it's snapped off. Well, it was a nice idea. Anyway, back to the drawing board. Get some pliers, pull that out, and I think I'll have to have another think, but it just goes to prove that not everything you try and do always goes in necessarily to plan. Oh well. Okay, well, time for plan B. I've noticed that the rear of the two mounting holes, that one, you might not be able to see in the camera, but it is actually threaded. So I managed to find this, which just fits in there nicely. It's the right thread. So the theory is I'm going to try to carefully drill through here. Now, bearing in mind this is plastic, but I'm going to mark a little hole here, drill a very small hole, and then gradually go larger and larger, because there's not a great deal of material to play with. Maybe once I file that little knob off the end there, maybe that will mount through here. At least that's the theory. So I'll go and sort my drill out and then report back. Okay, well, that's the pilot hole just drilled, no pun intended. You can just about see that maybe here. And we'll just work our way up through those and see if we can drill a hole big enough to accommodate this while still leaving a little bit of material and strength either side. At least that's the theory. Right, well, I've probably worked my way up through about 6 different drill bits to get to the hole being that large, but it's still not quite enough to sneak that through. It's very, very close. So I'm going to go up to another drill size, but there's so little meat left to play with that I'm going to break out a proper oldie worldy hand drill, nice small one. So the final hole, using this drill bit here, I'm going to use this. Just go really, really slow and see if I can open up this without splitting the plastic, which there's probably a 50-50 chance of this working. Just a lot more manageable and controlled like this, because even though the electric drill has got variable speed, when it's this delicate. There we go. Tense times. Voila! It goes through. There you go. I hope you can see that. Let me just get the extra light. You might be able to see how precarious it was drilling. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's very, very, very marginal. It just about, this now just about sneaks up through there, and then this can mount into the bottom of the aircraft itself. This will need, I'll cut this down a little bit. The theory then, even though this is a little bit lightweight to be honest, that will mount something like that. And there we go, mounted on its new little stand. It's in take-off guise, but I think given that that stand was kicking around and not doing anything and the plane had no stand, I think that's probably a result. Yeah, I'm really pleased with that. Well, hi folks, welcome back to the Fun Factory. A couple of days have passed. In the meantime, we have had some deliveries, yes. New rear brake calipers for the MX5 there. A big 5-litre container of brake fluid, because it really isn't worth buying the piddly little 1-litre bottles of that. It works out so much more efficient, cost efficient, to buy the big box. And indeed, we have some windscreen wiper blades of unknown origin. Cheapies off eBay, but they will do for the MOT, because today the MOT actually expires on the MX5, so I knew it was probably going to expire anyway, so that's not really the end of the world. But today's plan is to crack on with fitting the brand new rear brake calipers. That's the plan anyway. The pads themselves are okay, the discs are okay, plenty of life left in those, but the new calipers should really improve the braking and hopefully finally eradicate the tendency for the brakes to stick when the car sits for any length of time at all, really. So that's really the plan for today. Harley's upstairs doing a bit of editing on one of his videos. Yesterday evening we went to a VSCC pub meet. He is going to do a video about that. He went there on his old bicycle, his 1927 CWS. We took the Renault 4CV, and he'll do a little bit of a video about that one. I didn't do a video of this particular meet, but he has, so look out for that on his Car Traction channel very soon. But anyway, without further ado, let me crack on with the MX5 Resurrection, and it'll be good to get it back on its wheels again. I won't video everything that I do, because it can be A, bit repetitive, and B, not particularly interesting to watch, and I'll just post a bit of an update once I've cracked on with this, the passenger rear wheel, and then obviously I'll do the other side once this side is all back together, and then bleed it all through, get fresh fluid through everything, and then that should be the brakes crossed off the list, all being well. There's definitely something strangely satisfying about opening boxes of new parts and goodies for the garage. There we go, 5 litres of .4 brake fluid, so that should keep me going for quite a while. I will decant it into an empty 1-litre container. It just gets a lot more manageable for topping up the brake master cylinder when we're bleeding the brakes, but this should last me for quite some time. And hopefully we have new rear calipers in here. I'm hoping they've sent the right ones. Came from the same place that the front calipers came from, so we should be okay on that score, but you never really know until you check. I believe the calipers, certainly on the front anyway, the calipers on the Mark 1 1.6 are slightly different to those on the Mark 1 1.8, which is what we've got here. So you have to pop a few of these. Yeah, there we go. And here we go. Same brand as the other ones that we bought for the front, so they hopefully will be the right ones. Can't open it single-handedly, but yes, I'm sure. Oh, there we go. There we go. Bit of live unboxing action here. And there is the caliper. So it's quite a thing, quite a construction. It also houses the handbrake mechanism as well, but that's going to look so much nicer. Again, there's the piston there, you can see that bit there. The handbrake mechanism operates this part here. So yeah, all very neat, and fingers crossed it's the right one. So one for the left side. So what's that? 178950. That's one side. Don't know which. And this one, hopefully, has a 951. There we go. Does it say on it? To fit Mazda. Looks like they're made in Germany. Or at least that's where they're boxed up. But, yeah, that should do. Yeah, God knows what these wipers will be like, but I do need to fit new ones. The wipers that are on, one of them made a bid for freedom some time ago when we were driving down the M5, so I had to make an emergency halt at Frankly Services on towards the top of the M5, just to sort of jury rig everything back on so that the I think it was the near side front wiper wouldn't actually fly off, because you certainly don't want that when you're driving on the motorway. But ever since, it's been a little bit compromised, the wiping on the passenger side, so yeah, this is well overdue fitting some fresh wipers. How long these will last is anyone's guess, but if we get a bit of life out of them, that'll probably do. Yeah. What the executive range. Right, so getting close now to fitting the near side rear brake caliper on the MX5. So the old one is off. I've disconnected the handbrake linkage, the cable linkage there. We'll be bolting that, or I'll be bolting that onto there. So basically that ends up going on there. This top bit here slides on to that pin there. So to fit this, you put it on at an angle like that, you slide that into there, then you hinge it down, and it ends up somewhere like that. And you've got this, there's a pin that goes through there into here. So basically it'll end up like on there, and the pads sit in that recess there, and there's your piston there. So yes, that's basically it, and that's how it fits on to the car itself. It's kind of, I can't really film it too easily actually doing the installation, but that's basically what's going to happen. Then I will remove the fluid line there from the flexi pipe there. Ooh, there's a tractor. So I'll remove that, fit that into there. We'll remove that little blue blanking plug. That'll go into there, and that's the bleed nipple there. And hopefully it'll all go reasonably smoothly, but of course you never really know. And if you're a regular spanner wielder on your old car, you'll know that a job is never done until it's done. And yeah, there's always a few surprises along the way. And once this side's all together, I can crack on with the other side. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, the disc isn't too bad. It's vented discs on the front, solid disc on the back. This is a standard car. I'm sure you can get vented disc kits for the rear as well as the front on these, but I don't go track daying this car, so we won't need any of that sort of thing. But yeah, just get the brakes back to factory spec. I think that'll be a good result. Right, I'll report back once this is all back in place. The pads have to go in here in the holder before you swing the caliper on there and swing it down. You have to put the pads in here, and not forgetting these little clips here, which are a bit fiddly. They go like that. There's one there, and there's another one which goes up here, which is a bit fiddly, holding that in there, and then we slot the pads which are over there into here. And the most fiddly part of all is these little springy clips. These have a habit of flying across the garage, and yeah, it's a pretty easy thing to lose, and they sort of go something like that. I've got a photograph. One of the most important things you can do when taking a car apart is to photograph everything as you go. I've got some photos on my phone somewhere that'll remind me just how it all goes back together. But yeah, all exciting stuff. Okie dokie, that's all in place, adjusted up, and hopefully ready to bleed through as soon as I've done the other side. This is the caliper that came off, and as you can probably see, it's not the freshest looking bit of equipment you've ever seen in your life, so I think replacing it was probably a very, very good idea, because sooner or later it would have probably just locked up and seized up entirely. So I will salvage the bleed screw off it, and any nuts and bolts that may just be useful. I'll chuck those in a box. I'll try and keep as much as I can, just in case I ever need something in future. But yeah, the rest of it, well, that'll probably go in the recycle bin at the local tip. Okay, I just need to do exactly the same thing over here, but not before having a swift cup of tea, I think. And another arrival in the post is this, the stoplight switch for the VW Fox, which I will attempt to install. I'm just in the middle of doing the brakes on the Mazda at the moment, but we'll give that a bit of a go. And there is the replacement stoplight switch. So in theory, apparently, it's just like a bayonet fitting, so you twist it through 90, pull it off, swap the connector over on there, put it back in, twist it, and apparently that's all it's done. So I'll report back and see if that YouTube advice was actually correct. Well, needless to say, that didn't go to plan. This is the cheap, rubbishy repro switch, which when you actually compare it to the original one, which is about twice the weight, I like chalk and cheese, which is a bit disappointing. That's the original VW piece there, which has stopped working, and this is the poor repro thing, which doesn't work at all. So you put the original switch on, you get no brake lights. Put this one on, and they're stuck on all the time. So that's just perfect. So I've asked the seller of this one to send a replacement, and I've ordered another one, which looks a bit more substantial, a bit more like this one. So fingers crossed that one will at least work, because so far we're not doing very well. Well, while I await the delivery of yet another stoplight switch for the Fox, back to the offside rear of this. Okay, well there's that caliper on as well. That all looks nice and shiny. That's adjusted up, tightened up. So I think that is everything done for there. So all that remains is, I think, to adjust up the handbrake lever using this little adjuster just down there. So we'll give that a go now. Okay, well that's all done. Rear wheels are locked of 4 clicks of the handbrake lever, which is about right, and it all seems to be releasing off properly too. So I think all that remains to be done is to refit the little covers there which go on the side of the handbrake, and then we'll bleed the rear brakes, and then hopefully that'll be that job done. Well folks, there we go. The MX5 is back on its wheels. The wheel nuts have been all tightened up, handbrake works, foot brake works, no sticking brakes now, and the only job left to do is fit those slightly spurious Origin windscreen wiper blades. It is Friday afternoon. Spurious is sort of vague and indecisive. You don't really know where they've come from. So yeah. So anyway, the plan is to fit those over here, of course, and that, I think, will wrap up today's activity. It's Friday afternoon. I'm ready for a cup of tea. So I think we'll now wind up this video. Oh, amazing. Oh yes, this was Mum's lucky find just before I sign off. Mrs. OCC regularly goes litter picking up and down the road near here, and she finds all sorts of things, some of them more savoury than others. But one of the more useful things she's found recently is this super little socket ratchet. It works perfectly. It was found dug into the road. Someone had obviously been driven over a few times. It was face down in the tarmac, but happily it survives and it still works just perfectly. I'm not sure if we can do. There we go. So yeah, perfect addition to the toolbox. You can never have too many of these. Anyway, I think we'll wrap this one up. So thank you so much for watching this tinkering video. It's been quite a busy week one way and another. Shame about the VW Fox brake light switch not being up to snuff, but hopefully that will come next week and we will get that back together ASAP. So thanks so much for watching. Please check out the rest of the channel. I'll include links to some similar videos here on the channel at the end of this one, and there'll be loads more videos along very, very soon. So bye from me and bye from him, no doubt. Yes, bye bye. Before I forget, the VW Fox, well, eventually we did get the brake lights working. That's the original switch which packed up. I mean, it's a few years old now, so that's fair enough. That's the repro switch which didn't work, and to be honest, it's pretty rubbish. So I have ordered another one. I'm not quite sure when that's going to get here, so in the end I decided to chase around and find another switch just to get it on the road ASAP. So big thanks to TT Spares over near Crewe. They had a look on their stores and they found a good used switch which just happened to fit the Fox perfectly. So we are back in business. The replacement switch is under there. The second switch that I bought online, well, that'll do as a spare. We'll pop that in the glove box and maybe one day we will need it. But yeah, at least we are back in business and the Fox is working again. There's a lorry coming. I'll wait for that to go. Lorries coming and going quite a lot at the moment next door. Bit of building work going on. They make a hell of a racket. So I'll just pause the video and start once it's gone.